Hello everybody, welcome to Epilepsy Gangster. I'm Tim Ulmer, your host, and before you go assuming I'm some kind of Godfather wannabe because of my voice, it's not. It's because I have an implant, a vagus nerve stimulator, and it's because of the evils done to me by the Epilepsy Gangster. It has to be at 100% power, and it affects my voice. So I've gone underground to fight this guy. He's a real tyrant that has to be stopped because the Epilepsy Gangster robs people of employment, opportunities, and relationships. He steals from pensions, college funds, savings accounts, and monthly budgets so people have to choose between food and medicine. And he kills people, whether it's in their sleep, whether it's in auto accidents, or simply falling to their death. I have assembled a gang of people who are leading happy and productive lives in the community regardless of their epilepsy. Watch our show and see what you can learn from them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is certainly a sweet story to do, as I'm talking to Chef Stephen Bjorski in New York. But Stephen, why don't you tell us what kind of epilepsy you have?
I have the tonic-clonic seizures. The last few events, I had more than one. Sometimes they come in clusters. I had breakthrough seizures. When I was in school, I went for 5 years without having a seizure. I was working in the bakery, and during my break, I had another one. I had one that caused me to go to the hospital. And while in the hospital, in the emergency room, I was being checked out. And, you know, it's not really a fast process. They're busy and they get to you. And the neurologist came up to me and said, "Yeah, you're okay to go home." When he said that, my wife and I were walking towards her car, and I had another seizure on the way out of the emergency room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was not a pretty one. I severely hurt myself. I fell on my head. The feeling I got when I kind of woke up, I was caught in a CAT scan. It was not something that I was aware of. I felt like I was in some kind of science fiction movie. And then traveling through space, I don't know, it was not real, you know.
Well, how long have you had the seizures?
Petit mal absence seizures since I was 2 years old. And then as I had a traumatic brain injury when I was a teenager, I started having grand mal or tonic-clonic seizures.
Well, what kind of jobs have you had through the years before being a chef here?
When I was a teenager, I worked on the fishing boats down the Jersey Shore, and we used to go out in the ocean we went out every day. I stopped working on the fishing boats because I wanted to attract young women, and the smell of fish on me 24/7, I don't think I had any chance. So I changed that and started doing landscaping, construction work, and I became a carpenter. And when I had a seizure at home, I woke up on a gurney going through the hospital. And the neurologist said, "You know, you got to leave this job. It's too dangerous for you." So I did. I ended up working as a pressman at a college, a printing press. I was able to attend college for free. I was able to run my own epilepsy support group at the college. I was able to meet up with certain people that were fantastic with other disabilities, help a few people out that had similar situations as we do. You know?
What were you studying when you went back to college?
Oh, it was like a mess of things. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started out with business. Then I started out with psychology. And when I really left that college and went up to New York, I studied graphic arts and my employer paid for me to go to Pratt Institute. So graphic arts. I found out that I had a very good talent for cooking. And Manhattan was, at that time, that one of the best places to go to school for any kind of culinary skill and adventure.
Really?
Yeah. Like anybody else who was new, I started cooking at home. One of my first projects is I adopted twins from Hungary. So I really wanted them to be photographed with a professional photographer. So I bargained with her to do the photography, and I catered her show.
You do something else with your cooking. Tell us about the tutoring. What's that like?
Throughout my history of supporting ADA services and students with disabilities, and being at a community college that has a culinary program, I graduated with high honors with my program. I became volunteer tutor when I first started.
When you help students with their homework with the culinary, do they get to eat their assignment when they're done?
Depends. I have two ways of teaching them and tutoring them. Pre-COVID, I went to their home, to their own kitchen, and had them buy a certain amount of ingredients so we could actually work on the recipe. More so when they're beginning students, I would actually teach them how to use a knife, and how to portion and how to weigh certain items so they're correct, I worked with students who had autism, learning disabilities, visual impairments, hearing.
With your help, they were learning a new skill that was going to make them independent, right?
They, like many of the students who actually go to our college, have a chance to work through our career development program. So they can be placed in a kitchen, and it's nothing fancy when you first show up. I mean, you might be cutting vegetables all day, but that's very important to learn. Doing dishes, cleaning, whatever. But that's how everybody starts.
Now, Stephen, as much as you love food, tell me, why is it you're not fat?
Because I refuse to be, and I have a little puppy here. Can you see the puppy?
Yeah.
Her name is Mocha, and I take her for walks, and she loves walks. If you say walk to her, she just perks up. We can go out 4 to 5 miles a day and still feel like we have a little bit left.
You think that helps you with your epilepsy?
Oh, absolutely. I think exercise in a controlled way gives you a chance to become stronger. I believed in that when I was running marathons for many years. I ran 50 marathons, and
wow.
You build your endurance to a certain peak gradually, and that in turn builds your endurance to handle your seizures. And believe it or not, I went for like 10 years without a seizure with my running when I was running.
Great. Well, tell us about the business that you run now.
In the start of the COVID situation, I decided to start baking from home, cooking meals for people, doing things with no contact delivery, no contact at all. And it became a very lucrative business. And it was really great for people who were fearful about going to the store or didn't have the know-how to bake or cook as much as I did. And we do custom orders. Yeah, not necessarily, but we choose a menu every week. And with my wife and I, we usually chose different countries to make it interesting.
What's one thing that you would like to tell people about how to live with epilepsy?
I think the most important thing, and I caution people, is do not follow other persons who do not have it. When I say that is just because your friends go out drinking doesn't mean you have to. There's certain limits. Just because your friends do drugs, do not. Get your rest, probably more. Take your medicine on time. See your doctor regularly. And remember, you're not invincible. You're not like your friends. Epilepsy does not have a cure. So the best way of fighting it is making certain that you are in control of things that you can bring into your body or into your life.
Well said. Well said. Well, does it also mean something too if people are doing what they love and they happen to love cooking food? Does that make a difference in seizures?
I think it does. If you have a passion for what you do, you're happier. A stressful environment can cause you to have seizures. So if you ever find yourself into one of those, I'm not necessarily saying leave in a minute's notice, but try and find something that's acceptable, that somebody appreciates you.
I'm just going to have to go upstairs and get a store-bought cookie. That's all I got to satisfy my hunger after seeing your stuff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to Chef Stephen, and good luck with the business here.
All right. Thank you.
Tim always knew the world was made of different people, the idea of serving others, and loving the United States. Epilepsy made that difficult his entire life, particularly in keeping him out of the Navy. After several failures, the chance came to teach English in communist China. Going to the Chinese university, he was the first foreigner most had met, and he became their only American friend. Everyone discovered that people shouldn't base their friendships solely on nationalities.
I was glad to answer their questions because for the first time in my life, I saw that God had a mission for me. I became proud of my epilepsy, and I realized that I was serving on a mission for my country's image that was bigger than anything I'd imagined as a kid. At the same time, I was serving God.
Read the ebook, Involuntary Mission in China with a Thorn in the Flesh, to learn about Tim's struggles and discoveries. Ebook available on Amazon.
The Defeating Epilepsy Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping those battling epilepsy. We provide advocacy and educational services to those battling epilepsy at a global level. For more information about our projects and services, please visit our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org or email us at info@defeatingepilepsy.org. Please like us on social media and follow us so you can see how we are making a difference. Thank you for your support, and together we will defeat epilepsy.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we've said all along, epilepsy knows no boundaries. And I have with me tonight my friend Dan Vincent, who's coming all the way from up by Ontario. He's an advocate up in Canada. And we're blessed to have you with us on our audience tonight, Dan.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about when did the Epilepsy Gangster come into your life?
I was maybe 6 months old. When
really?
When things kind of started developing.
How did that affect you growing up?
Let's call it rejection.
Really?
Yeah, really. When Mom told me, says, Dan, you're going to start school now. And as a 5-year-old, that was kind of, I can vaguely remember that. And she told me that I'd be meeting up with some friends. However, she did say that all these friends were going to be brand new to me. Day number 2 was a game changer. Because that second day, I walked in school and I started the conversation in the same way. And all of a sudden, my initial seizures were in the form of a blank stare or blinking. Yeah.
That would be a surprise.
Then I come back to notice that the people who I was talking with had backed away. I said, what's going on here? I looked at my shirt. Everything seemed to be fine. There was no jam from the morning breakfast. So it was good. But why were they backing away? I had no idea why. And that persisted as the years went by.
When did things turn around for you? When did you start to take action against the gangster?
By the time I was maybe 17, 18 years old, a neurologist came up to me. And my graduation year says, Dan, would you entertain the idea of going for surgery? I says, surgery? Really? Brain surgery? Yeah. Says, I never heard, even knew that this existed. So I brought it up and I says, okay, well, what are my chances? And he grinned and he looked at me. He says, about 98%. He says, wow, sign me up, buddy. Sign me up. And here's a doctor, which I had known for quite some time. So he says, well, not so quick. I need to let you know of a few things. He says, like what? He says, well, you need to know that you'll be the 18th patient in the world to ever undergo this surgery. He says, what? Yeah, exactly. Wait a minute here. First, you bring me up really high. When my hopes are up there, and all of a sudden, you just decide to crush them. He says, thanks. So I took a moment, and here's what I know. I started thinking. I was 18 years old. And at 18 years old, I was at age of consent. It was no longer my parents' decision. Here's a time when everybody else, all my friends, all my peers, people who I looked up to, were out looking for maybe to purchase a used car, a four-wheeler, or some toy. And that was their major decision. And mine was having my life in my hands. So I came up against this, doc. What if I don't? And pause. He went silent. I went silent. And here was a tall man. He had broad shoulders, huge hands, fingers like sausage, square jaw. Looked very intimidating to anyone else. But he looked scared. So I knew what he was going to tell me wasn't going to be good. He says, Dan, if you keep on going with these seizures, you're slowly going to become a vegetable. And that's when everything went to the pit of my stomach. I felt like throwing up. I didn't want to be a burden to society any more than I already was. So I went for it. I gambled. I put my life in his hands. And we did it. We went through this procedure. It was a barbaric procedure, mind you, initially, for some testing. But we finally got it done. I walked out of there. But with a slice of a knife that got rid of those seizures, they couldn't remove the anxiety that I was experiencing. And they couldn't add any self-esteem that I really required. And that's how I walked off.
So how did you get that self-esteem and confidence you needed?
Honestly, Tim, I would say that was by accident.
You really believe in an accident, or is it fate, or is it God?
It was a given accident. I like your word for the faith. Is it that I'm sure that's what it was. When I was introduced to a multi-level marketing meeting, and here was a set of folks that once everything was done, they approached me and they believed in me. For the first time ever, Tim, for the first time, someone believed in me. They provided me with a system, with tapes, books, and functions. Everything was positive, and I loved it. But little did I know what it was doing to me, just because I loved it. So I kept on doing this. And what it required for me to do was to talk with different people, which was completely out of my comfort. But the more I went, the better I got. I gained confidence. I became assertive, and I became who I am now.
What are you doing nowadays?
So an industrial mechanic is what it is. And over 30 years, Tim, and having gotten rid of my seizures, the physical seizures that you could see through that surgery, but still experiencing a lot of auras. So the anxiety, the fear, but with the confidence that I gained, slowly in time, I kind of look back to that, and I got to realize that fear wasn't there anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Bravo.
Something happened maybe a few years ago. I was at the gym, and things were going good. So I like to keep fit because that's part of my thing. It's part of a triangle that I use. And I was going to the gym at 4 a.m. and 4 to 5 a.m. every day. But what happened was that I was lacking my sleep. And the one day I got home, went to bed, 2 a.m. I was sleeping. I woke up, goosebumps all over my body, what I used to experience in the past. And nausea, saliva started building up in my mouth. I said, what is going on here? I haven't felt this in years. What is happening? And that's when I found out sometime later that what I was experiencing were actual seizures. I says, wow.
Really?
So within 2 weeks after doing this, knowing that my sleep is one of my triggers, I got everything settled down and I was back to normal.
And how have you been since?
Doing just well. As long as I keep that triangle in shape, which is the very top is lower my stress. The bottom left is my fitness and diet, huge components. And the bottom right is my rest, my sleep. I need 8 hours of sleep every single night. And if I don't get it, I find out. And what you're talking about, this epilepsy gangster, really comes on down pounding on me.
It doesn't sound like the gangsters really hindered you professionally and made you reliant upon society to take care of you.
It sure hasn't.
Marvelous. And how do coworkers feel about you?
I kept this hidden forever, Tim. Nobody knew about it because I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to lose my employment. And I feared the repercussions I would be getting, not only from my employer, but from my colleagues, from those who I work with, my coworkers. How are they going to perceive me? Until one day I got the option, I got the opportunity to express myself through mental health. And I brought it forward. I said, okay, this is where I'm going to open up. And I did. I opened up big time, huge.
How has your family felt about your epilepsy?
It hasn't really hindered my family because I dealt with it. And if there were times and moments that I was experiencing those anxieties that I was speaking about, I kind of resigned to myself, and they'd give me a moment, and then I'd come out of it, and I was okay again. But my children were so small that they didn't really realize what was going on. It was only today that they really know that what the impact was, and they see what Dad's doing now, and this is the legacy I want to provide for my own children, so that they can see. And maybe what I want to do is manicure the path for them, so that they can follow what I'm doing and become successful on their own.
If there's one single message you have for people with epilepsy, what would it be, Dan?
I want people to follow the triangle that I've spoken about. And that triangle between you're lowering your stress, managing your diet, your fitness, and watching your rest is huge for lowering your seizures. It's all about triggers. What is your trigger? What is your
Same
trigger?
thing you're mentioning. You also have a program, correct?
I do. I have a podcast.
Tell us where people can see your podcast.
My podcast can be seen on YouTube. And I'll put them on my channel on YouTube as well as on Facebook.
Okay.
I've got a page on Facebook as well, a group. I invite anyone with epilepsy to join the group. It's called peak transformation.
I'm sure folks are going to be checking in with you. This has really been fascinating, and your attitude is overwhelming.
Hi, I am Natalie Beavers, and I am one of the many survivors living with epilepsy. My life has been filled with many ups and downs. It's just a part of life. I am proud of the person that I am becoming, and as I stand in the face of this relentless disorder called epilepsy, I want you all to know that I am me.
I want you to know that you are not alone.
And I was scared to go home because I didn't know what to expect at home. And I knew we had stairs everywhere at home to get in the house, both sides of the house. And granted, after that, I was good, but just getting in the house and
what I wish I would have done for the last 30 years. And that is to let people know how much I struggle, how much help I needed, because I didn't get any help. So I wish I would have done that instead of keeping secret about it.
Well, Ron and I were very fortunate to find a support group right off the bat. And I have to say it was the most uplifting thing that we could have possibly done.
When I think of a white rabbit, I first think of magic. Now, how about a white rabbit wearing a waistcoat, carrying a pocket watch, and talking out loud? Of course, I think of the majestic and classic story of Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. One of the most identifiable characteristics in this story is the constant shape-shifting and size-changing nature of the characters, Alice in particular. Throughout the story, Alice drinks out of a vial to grow as tall as the room or shrink to as little as 10 inches tall. So how does the author come up with such an imagination? Well, the author didn't. From a very young age, he suffered a severe fever that prompted lifelong struggles with epileptic seizures. In addition, he suffered from microphagia and macrophagia, brain conditions that alter the way objects are perceived by the mind, making objects incredibly small at times and quite large during others. As prominent as these conditions were to him, he didn't dwell on them. In fact, he began creating his own version of the world. Telling stories through his epileptic aura state, this man has become one of the most recognizable English authors of the 19th century. His most famous works include Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, some of the most popular fiction novels that will be engraved in literature's history forever. This author is Lewis Carroll. If you knew time as well as I do, you wouldn't talk about wasting it.
Epilepsy Gangster, you are really one dumb banana if you think that your time is unlimited. Because right now, researchers are peeling away your secrets. And little by little, as they learn more, they are picking you apart. And once that time comes, it will be a delicious treat for everybody. Yeah, once Epilepsy Gangster is gone, it will be smooth sailing for millions of people around the world. And for all you viewers out there, may you be seizure-free and may God bless you.